Text your 5 closest people this exact sentence. I'm not going to be reachable for the next 30 days. Then watch what happens. Some of them will panic. Some will get angry. One of them, if you're honest, will probably disappear from your life entirely. And that single reaction will tell you more about that relationship than the last 5 years combined. That text message is the first move in a private experiment the Stoics were running 2,000 years before psychologists gave it a name. 5 rules, 30 days, no announcements, no audience, no permission asked. By the end, one of these rules will have cost you a friendship. Another will force you to sit alone with a fear most people spend their entire lives running from. And the last one is the reason the other 4 actually stick.
Here's what 30 days of silence does to a person that 10 years of talking never will. Rule 1. Stop feeding the noise. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on one split-second decision available to you every single moment. Is this thing in front of me actually mine to control or not? Your phone buzzes, someone's opinion of you shifts, a stranger online is wrong about something that has nothing to do with your life. None of that is yours. Your attention is yours. Your next hour is yours. That's the whole list. For the next 30 days, treat your attention like a resource under siege, because it is. Delete what exists purely to provoke you. Mute what exists purely to distract you. Every morning before your feet hit the floor, ask the only question that matters. Is this within my control? If not, you already have your answer. This sounds simple. It isn't. Most people fail this rule by day 3, not because it's hard to understand, but because withdrawal from noise feels, at first, like withdrawal from relevance. Your brain has spent years wiring itself to treat every notification as a potential threat or reward worth checking immediately. Breaking that wiring feels, for the first 72 hours, like something is actually wrong. It isn't. That discomfort is just the noise losing its grip, one unanswered ping at a time. By day 7, something shifts. The urge to check fades because nothing catastrophic happened when you didn't. That's the proof Epictetus was pointing at all along. Most of what feels urgent was never actually yours to carry. That was the easy rule, the one anyone can survive. Rule 2 is where people who talk about changing start separating from the ones who actually do it. Rule 2. Go silent about the work. Here's an uncomfortable fact about announcing a goal out loud. Your brain rewards you for the announcement as much as it would reward you for the achievement. Neuroscience calls it a premature sense of completeness. Seneca called it something simpler. Men who mistake talking about virtue for practicing it. For the next 30 days, tell no one what you're building. Not the new routine, not the business idea, not the body you're rebuilding at 5 a.m. while everyone else is asleep. Let the results speak in 30 days, because right now your unfinished progress is fragile, and other people's opinions, even well-meaning ones, are exactly heavy enough to crush something that hasn't hardened yet.
Marcus Aurelius filled notebook after notebook with private reflections, never meant for another set of eyes. He wasn't performing discipline for Rome. He was building it, alone, in rooms no one else entered. There's a second reason silence works, one Seneca understood without needing a lab to prove it. Every time you explain an unfinished plan to someone else, you invite their doubt into a structure that isn't load-bearing yet. A skeptical raised eyebrow from a friend, "Are you sure that's realistic?" lands differently on week 1 than it would on week 4. Early-stage effort is fragile, precisely because it hasn't produced evidence yet. And evidence, not encouragement, is the only thing that actually silences doubt, including your own. Silence protects unfinished work. But silence is nothing compared to what Rule 3 is about to take from you. Rule 3. Audit every person who has access to you. This is the rule that ends things. Say that plainly, because most versions of this advice soften it, and softened advice doesn't work. Seneca told his student to examine the people around him the same way he'd examine food before eating it, because some company is simply toxic, and staying near it long enough guarantees you absorb the poison. Not through one dramatic betrayal, through 1,000 small deposits of cynicism, small comments that clip your ambition at the knees, small doses of "why bother?" delivered by people who call it honesty. For the next 30 days, stop initiating contact with anyone who costs more than they give. You don't need a confrontation. You don't owe anyone a farewell speech justifying a boundary they never respected in the first place. Simply stop reaching out. Watch who reaches back. Here is what nobody tells you about this rule. Some of those relationships will end permanently, not pause, end, and you will grieve them because loyalty to people who diminish you doesn't feel like loyalty misplaced. It feels like love. The Stoics weren't cold men pretending otherwise. They simply understood that a finite life demands a ruthless audit of who's allowed inside it. There's a version of this rule that's less dramatic and just as important. Some people won't disappear at all. They'll simply matter less. The coworker whose opinion used to sting won't sting anymore. The relative whose comments used to derail your whole week will become background noise. That's not coldness settling in, that's proportion. You're not obligated to give equal emotional weight to every person who happens to have access to you. If losing people was the hard part, Rule 4 is going to demand something even fewer people are willing to give: control over their own body when no one is around to see it. Rule 4. Make your body obey before you ask it to. The Stoics never separated the mind from the body the way modern self-help does. To them, a man who couldn't command his own limbs had no business claiming he commanded his own thoughts. The body was the first proving ground. Everything else came after. For the next 30 days, move every day without negotiation. Not extreme, non-negotiable. Walk when the couch is winning the argument. Train when the excuse sounds airtight. Wake at the hour you committed to, even when the bed has better lawyers than you do at 5 a.m. This isn't about how you look in 30 days, though that will change too. It's about proof. Every rep, every early wake-up, every walk you didn't feel like taking is evidence submitted to yourself. I do what I say I will do. That currency is the only currency self-respect actually trades in. Marcus Aurelius rose before sunrise to write and think while his own body was failing him with illness he couldn't cure. If a dying emperor could win that argument with himself every morning, and "I'm too tired" stops holding up in court.
Notice what's actually happening across 30 days of this rule. It's not the workout that changes you. It's the fact that you now have 30 consecutive data points proving your word means something to the one person's opinion of you actually determines how you show up everywhere else. Yourself. 4 rules down. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. None of the first 4 survive contact with real life unless you install the 5th. Attention control?
Silence, ruthless relationships, physical discipline. All of it collapses the moment fear shows up uninvited. And fear always shows up uninvited. Rule 5. Rehearse the worst before it rehearses you. The Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. Every morning, before anything bad had actually happened, they imagined it happening anyway. Losing the job, losing the relationship, losing the reputation they'd spent years building. Not to become bitter, to strip the fear of its ambush advantage. For the next 30 days, spend 5 minutes each morning sitting inside your worst-case scenario, not glancing at it, sitting in it. The failed project, the relationship that doesn't survive Rule 3, the version of you that tried and visibly fell short in front of people who'll remember it. Let the discomfort actually land. Then ask one question. Could I survive this? The honest answer nearly every time is yes, and that answer is the entire point. A person who has already rehearsed their worst day stops flinching at the threat of it. He speaks up in the meeting others stay silent in. He asks for the number others are too afraid to name. He risks the reputation others spend a lifetime protecting, because he already knows exactly what losing it would cost, and he's already decided he'd survive the bill. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself constantly about death, not from despair, because a man who's made peace with the ending fears nothing standing between here and there. That's not morbidity. That's the most efficient fear removal system ever designed, and it's free. Here's why this rule has to come last after the other 4 and not first. Rehearsing your worst-case scenario before you've done anything to change means you're just rehearsing the same fears with the same weak foundation underneath them. But by day 30, you've already survived losing noise, losing an audience, losing certain people, and losing the excuse to skip a workout. The worst case you're imagining now isn't theoretical anymore. You've got 3 weeks of proof that you handle hard things better than your fear predicted. That's what makes Rule 5 land differently at the end than it would have at the beginning. 30 days from now, look in the mirror. You probably won't see a dramatically different face. What you'll notice instead is quieter and stranger. Someone tries to provoke you, and there's nothing left to grab onto. Someone expects the old, anxious version of you to show up to an argument, and instead, stillness walks in wearing your clothes. You won't need to announce what changed. That was Rule 2's entire point. The people who built a version of you they could predict, manipulate, or lean on will notice something's different before they can name it, and by the time they ask, you won't feel the old urge to explain yourself. Remember that text message from the beginning? The one that told you exactly who'd panic, who'd get angry, who'd quietly vanish? Send it again in 30 days. Watch how differently it lands the second time, not because the words changed, but because you did. Disappear on purpose. Follow the 5 rules without an audience. In 30 days, come back and let the silence of where you went do what no explanation ever could.